This is Sirius XM Insight. I'm John Fugelsang. Thank all y'all so much for joining us on this, the 13th of September, the day Michelangelo began to work on his statue of David a scant 400 years ago. TV's Frank is here in the studio.
Hey.
You get your catchphrase right?
I'm a little flustered because
I know,
of who's
you're
here
flustered
right
by
now.
the eminence in the room. We will introduce her eminence in just a moment. Quick reminder, Page 6 TV does premiere on Monday, the 18th of this month, so do watch that, and it will be funny. And the Sexy Liberal Resistance Tour featuring Stephanie Miller, Frangela, and myself hits New York City on the 23rd of this month at the K Playhouse here in New York City. If you want to hear some dynamite stand-up material that might somehow be anti-Trump, I do recommend you come on down. Go to sexyliberal.com, playing The Taper in Los Angeles on the 11th with special... Oh, we can't announce the special guest. Well, the special guest in New York is a very funny political comedian who's very angry and curmudgeonly and will yell a lot if we say his name. I'll let you guess who that might be. I'm so pleased when an artist like this does our show, and even more pleased when an artist like this returns to our show. So let's just jump right in. I became the big Ellen Page fan with Hard Candy. That was it for me.
Oh, such a great
and of course, after that, we can rattle off the superlatives. We can rattle off, the charming little indies like Inception or the X-Men franchise. Little boutique films that you might have overlooked.
On a $2 million budget.
It's amazing how much they could do on that scant budget they had for X-Men.
Or another great superhero movie, Super.
Oh, yeah.
I love that
right.
movie, and you're awesome.
And look at James Gunn now.
I know, right?
Yeah. We're all
great guy.
And of course, I loved Gaycation. I've grown to love the work Ellen Page does as an actor, as a broadcaster, as an activist across multiple entertainment mediums. And now we find out that one of your newest films, which is really interesting because we were saying in the break we always want to see what will be the big Hollywood production Ellen does next in conjunction with the charming indies she'll do next. And I'm really actually more excited about this film than I ever was about the original because it is sort of a sequel and a remake at the same time of Flatliners, which you appear in along with Diego Luna and our friend Kiefer Sutherland. What a pleasure to welcome Miss Ellen Page back to Sirius XM Insight.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Was I not supposed to talk during
You can talk.
No, I'm like, I think that was an intro.
You know what?
I was interrupting you.
You have no idea how much coffee it's taken me to get this far today.
Okay.
So yeah, no, please jump in any time. It's kind of about you. It's great to see you. And when I first heard about this, I thought, well, that actually sounds like it could be a lot of fun. So I guess since it's continuing the story of Flatliners, it's not a spoiler to say you die in this movie.
We all die, yeah.
What was the appeal of the film, and is it a sequel? Because Kiefer Sutherland reprises his role, or is it more of a remake?
It's sort of, I'd call it more like a contemporary reimagining of Flatliners, new obstacles for med students, really intense competition, and new scientific possibilities and new technology. So I just, it's sort of set in a new world.
What was the appeal of the story? Had you seen the original film?
I had, and the appeal for me was mostly the character. I read the script, and Courtney is the one that has the idea and manages to convince multiple people to go along with her. And she's incredibly ambitious and incredibly focused just on this for a very specific reason, in terms of profound regret and grief. And her sort of journey through the film really compelled me, and it seemed like there was so much range in terms of what I get to do, and get to do horror really for the first time, and that really interested me. Is
horror a different kind of discipline for you as an actor on a set to be able to reach those kinds of emotional heights and do it? Because what I love about your performances in everything is you always find a way to be high energy and believable at the same time. I've never seen a lazy beat out of you, and horror is one of my favorite genres, but it's hard for actors to pull it off. And we've seen some great actors who can totally jump into the genre and others who seem uncomfortable. It seems like this must have been fun to play with.
It was. I mean, hopefully I pulled it off. I don't know. But yeah, it was. And it's definitely, maybe because horror is so physical, because I felt like starting with the physical made it the easiest for me. Like, how could you almost make your body Like, how can you almost create anxiety and almost a panic attack in your body and then take it from there?
Mm-hmm.
So then can you want to talk technique a bit? Because I find that fascinating. Are you someone who likes to follow, say, a Stanislavski method for something where finding the memory in yourself, or you just clenched your fist to show the physical? Do you prefer to use physicalization to get your body where you need to be for the shot?
I think it's both, you know? I think sometimes it just depends on the scene. I'd say it depends on if it's 4 a.m. and you can't, you know, then it might start more physical. So I think it would probably depend on the character and the scene, and would be a combination of the two, I think. Yeah.
Is death a subject that interests you?
Yeah. I think it interests everybody, but I guess not.
Well,
I love that book, The Denial of Death. you
Yeah.
know? Yeah. And I think right now, I think it's interesting. Is such a topic. I feel like the 3 movies that are sort of I have right now are all somewhat about death, but maybe it's because impermanence seems much more shoved in our face right now.
Oh yeah,
with all the things going on.
And John and I have died many times on stage too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually what we do rather stand-up tragedy in our acts. In approaching a role like this, it's an ensemble film, and so it is there a liberation for you in that, in having, you know, a large cast where you play off of each other, rather than a film like Juno where some way or other you're in almost every scene?
Yeah, I mean, it was, to me, the joy of it was I love each of those actors, and we became, and I'd only met Diego, and we just became so close, and, you know, rented a cottage for a long weekend and those kinds of things. So we really bonded, and you know, some of the nights were physical. You know, I've a decent amount of stunts in the movie, and you know, when I'm working with Kiersey or, you know, whatever, it's just everything sort of lifts. Yeah, so it was nice.
It seems like it was a fun film to work on.
I mean, we had a lot of fun. Yeah.
When you get along with the other actors, that must help a lot. Right?
Yeah, look, it was just such a great group of people. It just felt really egoless and beautiful. And
is that a hard thing about your life? Is that you form these close bonds on some films with people, and then one day it's wrap day, and then you all move on to other.
That is the life.
adventures?
That is the life people choose. Yes.
yeah. Yeah, but I mean, I guess like so many of my dearest friends I met shooting movies.
Right.
So, yeah.
So it's not like you just lose contact.
Yeah. No. Yeah. And yeah.
The last time you were here, we were talking about the film Freeheld with you and Julianne Moore, which is such an underrated movie. I think the performances in that film are just a couple of masterpieces. I love the relationship. My wife loved the relationship in that film. And it was a kind of relationship we don't see too often. And it was another one of these wonderful low-budget dramas that you seem to have a really good eye for. What is it that catches your eye, and how many scripts do you normally read? What are the signs for you that you like a character in a project and the team behind it for, say, a low-budget drama or a big-budget Hollywood thriller?
I think it's mostly the script, you know, and like wanting to work with specific people, of course. But first and foremost, it's the script. If I feel compelled, or it's thought-provoking, or it moves me, makes me cry, and I sail through it, then I kind of know. And I'm the first to read something, even if it's good and the character's good, to be like, no, I'm not the right person for that, you know? So I usually just feel it. Yeah.
We mentioned the Gaycation show, and Jorge and I were big fans of that. That seemed like a really liberating project for you, and a project where you got to have a lot of creative control, and in many ways, it was one of the most autobiographical things I think I've seen you do. And I was wondering, looking back on it, how was the experience of taking to the road and shooting a TV project where you play yourself? Because I thought it was both a combination of great storytelling and the best kind of entertainment activism.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And you talking about it, because I like when people are introduced to it and get to see it.
It's a really, really fun show.
Yeah, I mean, at first it was strange to be in front of the camera as myself, like very bizarre, and it can be, you know, but
And you broke the fourth wall. I mean, you get to acknowledge the camera.
Yeah, so obviously a very new experience. It felt sort of nice to not be an actor for a bit and to make this and be very involved in post and developing the episodes, etc. With Ian, of course, Daniel, who I host the show with, and a whole wonderful team of people, of course. Obviously, a life-changing experience, absolutely. Obviously, when you're meeting a lot of, I'd say, some of the most marginalized individuals in the world, it can have a mixture of being, needless to say, it makes you very angry and devastated in terms of how we treat people. But also, you meet the most inspiring people you could ever meet in terms of activists and in terms of people and just their resilience and what they go through every day and how they keep fighting and form community to protect one another. So I learned so much, and those are the people that make the show,
Yeah.
A lot of people risk their lives by sharing their stories, and that's, I'm imagining, what reaches you and other people who care about the show.
Yeah, it was like you guys were the hosts of it, but the stories were the stars of it.
Yeah, or that's what we tried to do,
Or the spirit of it, what you were trying to accomplish, really. The goal of the show was the star of the show.
Yeah, our goal is to just listen as much as we can. Of course, be like a sort of entrance to it, or maybe I help people watch it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's always the struggle with things, of course. But yeah, so.
Could you share with us an example of one of the stories you encountered that did shock you or that did upset you on that show? Because I sort of feel that, since you've been here, we now have a vice president who was the most homophobic governor in the entire country.
Horrible.
A guy who tried to make discrimination legal for Christians who want to pretend that Jesus hated the same people they hate. And it wasn't even Christian in any way. Mm. It was just a naked ploy to get the worst elements of society gathered together and think that hate could be respectable. And now to see that we've made such strides in this society in the last 20 years, in the last 10 years, it does feel like a giant step backwards, but do you have hopes that we're still on the right trajectory? And I do want to hear a story that upset you.
Yeah, I hope so. Well, I guess here's one that can relate to it, which was when we were in Ukraine, and focusing on this sort of rise of similar aspects to what's happening here in terms of neo-Nazi groups, etc. And being in Ukraine, I remember a moment that was really. There's lots of moments that are devastating, so it's hard to, but I'll just do it because I think it connects to what also you're talking about. We were in like a self-defense class with like a bunch of sort of young queer people were taking, because it's just, there's so much violence if you're a visibly queer person. And in Russia and Ukraine, there's something called gay safaris, where they will go and, beat, harass, throw urine on, do horrible, horrible, horrible things, and film it, and then they put it online.
And visibly queer means presumed queer.
Exactly. So they might not be.
Exactly.
But, and I think, that was just so morbid. And then I remember being in this self-defense class, and they were showing videos of when they'd meet to sort of have pride events or whatnot, which would have to be pretty. They did end up having a pride march, as you see, and it went well at the end of the episode, but sort of hundreds of, neo-Nazis just, screaming horrible things and doing this and just, oh, sorry.
we allow physical gestures on the radio.
Yeah, a hand,
throat cutter.
Yeah. And there was something about watching this, self-defense class and these like young people taking it that really hit me hard. But that definitely seemed like a place where potentially things were going a bit.
I worry about Ukraine, of course, because now that they're all but a Russian property again, and we have, our most famously homophobic world leader in the West, Putin, who might be our leader over here. We're not quite sure.
Yeah, exactly.
It made me really feel like, oh God, is the clock just being turned backward? Did the experiences you had overseas make you feel better about how America's come along in the last decade or so?
Yeah, I think you can't not be inspired and grateful for the progress, like Edie Windsor, who obviously passed yesterday, and, her extraordinary work, or Marsha P. Johnson, Miss Major, all these extraordinary people who, I think a lot of the time, though, is a lot of people in the community get left behind. Trans women of color have a life expectancy of 35 in this country. 40% of homeless youth are LGBTQ. And a lot of those issues are struggling, they're not being addressed as much as they should be. So I think it's complicated because, if you could be a member of the community that isn't necessarily feeling the same benefits of the movement forward, if that makes sense.
Of course, yeah. And, it's like you hear things are getting better. You see headlines saying things have gotten better, but when you're in a marginalized community, when you're not Caitlyn Jenner...
Or you live in a city that, could be presented as a queer-friendly city, but has, criminalizes homelessness, for example. It's like that affects members of the queer community.
Yeah, vagrancy laws are deliberately designed to harass the most marginalized people in our society.
Yeah.
And, LGBT people... I have this running argument that you could make the argument that they are the most oppressed because LGBT people tend to be an oppressed minority within every minority as well.
Yeah.
So when I see someone do what you do, to take fame and to use that capital, not just to make more fame and more money, but to actually increase humanity, to actually be of service to the society that produced you, that inspires me. I've lost a lot of work because I didn't want to play dumb, and I've always admired actors like yourself, even when I don't agree with them, who pull it off. Because what else is the point of fame? I can imagine you've had people you pay commissions to in the past who've said, "Can you pull back from this?" Have you ever had pressure to not be outspoken, to not fight publicly for the causes you've fought for?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Or I remember talking about Gaycation was going to happen, and I just met with Vice, and I remember someone going like, someone in the work and related to me on some level, just being like, "We get it, you're gay,"
Oh, man.
as if you can't be out and gay and then want to make things that relate to your identity.
I'm so over that.
Yeah. But I think that even, can be the vibe sometimes, because there is a lack of queer representation, so people don't know the reality. So if you just see queerness as like
foreign
gay people in New York that like have money, you don't, not to say that those people don't deal with their, you know what I'm saying, but you don't understand the degree of people's experiences that are also happening in this city.
Will and Grace is hilarious. It's not going to give you any sense of what it's like for a trans woman of color trying to survive in LA.
Exactly.
Did you feel that this was a calling for you? Did you feel that actually putting your own cultural capital and professional fame on the line was a bit of service that was just undeniable? I mean, you could have gone and done a TV commercial campaign. You could have just not done that and laid low. And we all know lots of wonderful actors who write a check, but they don't want to put their face out there. Mm-hmm. It seems like this is a calling for you, and that's something that goes back to childhood.
Maybe, I don't know, it just feels like, I don't know, it's
organic.
Not like I have, it just feels organic, I don't know.
But your parents were socially aware people. Were they? Not really?
I mean, they're now more.
Now, okay.
I don't want to.
Of course.
No, I think I don't know, it just sort of, I think I was fortunate to just, at a young age, work and meet a lot of, and really inspiring, wonderful artists and people who introduced me to a lot and shared beautiful books and information, art that really moved me and allowed me to grow and all the leaders of resistance movements who I've learned so much from.
Who inspires you now these days?
I loved the Angela Davis's new book, Angela Davis always, but the new book that's sort of essays, interviews, etc. Freedom is a Constant Struggle, was really extraordinary. Jeff Chang. I don't know if you read his book, We Gonna Be All Right. Really moved me. Naomi Klein, always.
Of course, sure.
Bill McKibben, of course.
Of course, love him.
And then, yes, so...
See, we have this really horrible problem here, which is Canada envy. We look at your prime minister, and we are so proud to live in a country that shares a border with your country. Did you have any sort of... Were you shocked to see what happened here last November?
No, I wasn't.
Yeah.
And I think I wasn't, especially after making Gaycation, really seeing just like when people do feel comfortable to express their prejudice, like...
Yes.
Was there a well, I guess you already answered it, a false sense of security among people that, gay marriage had been passed and things seemed to be progressing? Do you think we were kind of lulled into thinking that things were better than they were?
Well, yeah, potentially. I think the same is to be said for Canada, because obviously Canada has a lot of things that are wonderful. Universal health care and maybe better education system.
Maybe, yeah.
But the problem is we're right now, we have the Keystone XL pipeline still potentially happening, or is going to happen.
Oh, I think it will happen.
It will happen, right. And so most climate scientists in the world have said, if you do that, that's it.
But it'll create about 24 jobs for a few months, Ellen. What's wrong with you?
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And, we have a pretty rough history ourselves in terms of how we treated Indigenous people. And there's a lot of white supremacist group in Canada. So I get scared, actually, in Canada.
Yeah.
In terms of something similar happening. I don't,
Of course.
I'm just being completely honest. I love growing up there, but...
No, I mean, it's the same. It's, my parents never left the Catholic Church. They've been clergy. They left, but they said, we're praying for a new pope. I can't give up on America. I can't give up on North America. I got to stay here and slug it out and try to just hope that intelligence and decency win the day, even if it upsets my agents, what I do about it.
Yeah. No, I mean, the people I directly work with, my manager and agent, they've, been nothing but supportive, but there's constant, boo-hoo. I'm like so fortunate. But yes, there's constant microaggression and whatnot. Why can't you wear a skirt in this movie, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Still? Really, still?
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm sure, I have no doubt you'd wear
and
a
if there
skirt
was a
if the role
character
calls
that
for it.
exactly, but in a role where it's not necessary, and this is what I really is that the conversation we're going to have is that your only idea of what a woman can be.
Well, you go to Hollywood for that.
Exactly.
Well, in that sense, I mean, Juno was a landmark film in so many ways culturally, and now that a big anniversary is coming up, I'm sure you're getting asked about that a lot. But when you look back on it, how do you feel about your performance, and how do you feel about that film where it came at the time it came?
Good question. I think I was good in it.
You were lovely in it. I mean,
I'll
it's
agree.
I think my performance was okay.
It's a perfect performance. It's just, it's beautiful.
Sorry, guys, I'm going to press the cough button. How exciting.
Please do it. Let's see. That's the first time anyone's actually done that.
Wow.
Nobody ever pressed the
first for
cough
us.
button.
I
You're
just
a
got
pioneer.
excited. Yeah, I'm a little sick.
Did you have any idea how groundbreaking it would be? On the surface, it's a very simple story about self-esteem and about love, and yet it just seemed like the world needed that film so much at the time.
No, we had no idea. When you're shooting a small independent film in Vancouver, that's like, comedy about teenage pregnancy. You do not think that that's gonna make over 100 million, whatever, domestically. So that was definitely a shock, but really special because, I love what Diablo wrote, of course, and it was exciting to take a producer to a used clothing store and be like, this is what she's gonna wear,
They gave you that kind of agency.
They were really cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
How has your life changed? How have you changed in the 10 years since? I mean, for those of us who liked you before, it was kind of funny hearing you being called an overnight success.
Right.
But in the 10 years since, have you grown as an actor? Do you feel that you're a better actor now?
I'd like to think so. I think, I think I've changed in terms of I'm just a lot more comfortable in myself. I'm not dealing with so much, bullshit in terms of, sorry, can I say that? Oh, yeah, it's serious. Fucking bullshit. Due to being, closeted and shameful,
The Catholics know a little bit about it. Yeah.
So I think being more connected to myself and able to have more sense of authenticity, of course, I think helps my work. Yeah.
And you're doing this super fun horror film. I mean, it's just like, to me, I think the most radical thing you could do is to do a big mainstream movie that everyone's going to go to on date night.
I hope so, yeah. I mean, I like it. I think it's fun and scary and, I love the concept of the movie. And
I love that you're doing it. I mean, you're the kind of actor where there's people who wouldn't ordinarily go to see a horror film, but they'll see your name on it and they'll know they'll get an Ellen Page performance and it'll draw them in to see it. I like that you're, the horror genre needs actors like you more than actors like you need the horror genre. So
you're sweet.
But you know what I'm talking about.
And it's a wonderful director too. Mm-hmm. Neil's directed the first Swedish Dragon Tattoo, and his cinematographer is extraordinary.
Boy, I love the original Swedish trilogy of that.
Right on, yeah.
Yeah.
So looking ahead, I mean, do you think often about the kind of roles you'd like to do, the kind of performances you'd like to give in your 50s and 60s and beyond? I mean,
if I make it that long.
Well, I mean, theater actors, that's all they talk about. But,
right.
Do you...
You might have to perform in front of cave paintings then. But,
Exactly. I think I'll be living in Nova Scotia, like hiding with a 22, maybe.
I might be applying to be your pool boy by that time, I know. But do you what kind of roles would you like to play going forward? And do you think about doing theater?
I do, yeah. I almost did years ago, and then it just didn't work out. It's funny. I don't think that much about, like, when I get asked, like, oh, what's your dream role, or what would you like to do? Mm-hmm. I don't always. For me, it really is like a script comes, I feel something. It seems like the right thing to do to explore new, and I go for it.
I think the groundedness that you have in your life that you bring to your roles is, in many ways, a very spiritual thing. It seems that you have gotten living in the moment down better than a lot of people twice your age. Mm-hmm. Am I right about that? You don't really seem like someone who can't handle their stress.
Trying. I have my moments, of course, but working on it, worry less and stop creating all these narratives for the future,
What are you optimistic about?
Love.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that seems to be the only thing we can cling to right now.
Right.
Each other, sense of community. Looking to all the individuals who've always been the ones to lead the resistance movements and really learning from them. Because this isn't new for a lot of people, this time.
It's hard because, we both do political stand-up and we're brawlers. I was on Fox News at 7 o'clock this morning dealing with people and very nice people. But it does seem that it's very easy to lose faith, and especially after an election like this. Mm-hmm. My faith was restored at the Women's March in D.C. when I went down there. And when I went to the anti-Muslim ban march, I look at some of the regressive elements of our culture and the people that you encountered in Gaycation, and it's easy to get down, and then I look at the work you do, and I look at the activists we've been inspired by. I'm rooting for North America. I'm rooting for my species. I think we're going to get there. I think Mother Earth may make sure there's fewer of us, but I think we're going to get there.
Yeah.
Do you feel, that we're on a right path?
I feel like it's hard for me to know and unfair for me to say, just because I'm not affected as much by other people. Like, I'm not as affected as much as other people. It's like the most honest thing anybody's
ever said to me. Yeah.
So I don't know if I could know, because I don't know what that feels like. I don't know what it feels like to drop your kid off school and then someone be like, no, I'm kicking you out of the country. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I can't even fathom that reality. Or to have grown up in this country and then someone say, no, sorry, you're going to go back here.
To where you've never lived ever.
Yes. Yeah. Or, dealing with the justice system when, you're a young black man or what have you. So I think it's so hard for me to say. And I think a lot of these things it really has just always been the case.
Mm-hmm.
And there's always not been many sides. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's no two sides to whether, queer people should be able to get married. There's no two sides to unarmed,
Science.
Unarmed or black men who are armed, getting shot in the streets.
Yeah, we have people in this country
and women of color, of course.
We have people who aren't mad that we need a Black Lives Matter movement. They're angry that black people are saying their lives matter. And that's what we're up against. And I think you nailed it, because I keep thinking it's not about...
Indigenous people.
Right.
Who've been,
And there's so much Indigenous poverty in Canada still.
Yeah, well, of course. And Canada's a huge issue, and needless to say, it's treated Indigenous people horribly.
I have friends who work on the reservations.
Yes, and obviously the same here, and barely any representation, especially in the industry I work in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. I mean, love is what I put my faith in. I think love is what will save us, and more, I think it's not about conservative, liberal. I think it's love and fear. Or love and ignorance. And I guess that's why I'm so happy to see you again, because you're one of the people that inspires me.
Aww.
You have every right to go off and be a big bubble-headed celebrity, and instead you choose to be an artist and to have empathy and to use that capital towards helping others and to making spectacular movies. I haven't seen Flatliners. I'm excited to see it, and I will watch anything you do because I love the way you work. Thank you for what you bring into the world, Ellen Page.
Kind. Well, you too.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure. We'll be right back after the... Are you playing Courtney Love out of this? Are you going with like
this song's in Juno?
This song is in Juno.
Well, there you go. There's your link.
Yeah.
He's good like that. Thank you, Ellen Page. Everybody, go see Flatliners. We'll be right back. This is Insight.
Thanks so much.